She smiled into the microphone, and I felt the ground tilt under my dress. My name is Maeve Ridley, and I grew up in a house that trained me to share. I shared a room with my younger sister, Lena, until I left for college. I shared sweaters, secrets, even victories that should have been mine alone. When I met Thomas Vale, I shared my happiness too, careful not to make it louder than anyone else's. Our wedding sat at the edge of early summer, a clear afternoon over a cedar-framed hall, with white peonies breathing quietly in glass vases. I wanted a simple ceremony, a circle of people who loved us, a clean beginning. The women at the salon pinned my hair while Lena scrolled her phone. She had chosen a pale green dress that made her eyes look softer than I remembered. She was always softer in rooms with mirrors. Our mother drifted between us, checking schedules, correcting details, reminding me to smile. I had learned, long ago, that her advice sounded like concern but worked like pressure. Thomas and I met in Portland at a volunteer shift repainting a community center. He had steady hands and a patient laugh. He listened to the whole answer and never reached for his phone. When I told him about Lena, I said she could be sharp. I said I loved her anyway. He said, kindly, that siblings can be complicated. We kept things modest, a farmer's market band for the reception, lemon cake instead of fondant, local wine, and a short guest list. At the rehearsal dinner, Lena raised her glass and told a story from high school, one that ended with me covered in glitter and apology. The table laughed harder than it needed to. She blew me a kiss. Later, she found me by the door and pressed her head to my shoulder. You know I'm only teasing, she said. I said I knew. Her perfume smelled like pears. Thomas's mother hugged me carefully, as if she feared smudging me. She whispered that I was already family. My chest loosened when she said it. Not everyone makes their love conditional. My father did not come, but sent a card with a thick check and thin words. Absence is a language too, and we had both learned to speak it. The morning of the wedding, I walked the empty hall with the venue manager, Asha Patel. She pointed out where the sun would land during vows, where the microphones would pick up the ambient chatter, where the band would set. She had the kind of competence you do not see until it saves you. We tested the speaker system and keepsake slideshow. I left my phone and a small clutch on a table beside the sound booth, trusting that near strangers would guard them while I became someone's wife. Lena found me before the ceremony, the green dress skimming her knees, the hem catching light. I wrote something, she said, eyes bright. Just a few words for the reception. You don't mind, do you? I did not. I said of course because it was easier to carry a little more weight than to argue about how much I already held. During the vows, a breeze moved through the open doors, as gentle as breath. Thomas's voice steadied me. He looked like a promise that had learned to stand. When we announced husband and wife, the room rose to its feet, and I felt a hush underneath the cheers, a private silence where my heart could rest. I did not know yet that the speech Lena had written would split the day open. I did not know that everything I had ever shared would be tested. I only knew that her smile had sharpened at the edge when she asked about the microphone. A thin line of tension drew between us, quiet and invisible, like a tripwire waiting for the first step. Our guests spilled across the lawn while the band found a slow rhythm. The air smelled like rosemary and new grass. I walked from table to table, fingers grazing chair backs, collecting squeezes and blessings. My dress brushed the ground, light as a sigh. People told me I looked serene. They meant I looked contained. In my family, containment was our proudest trick. Lena took the microphone before the toasts began, all smiles and glittering eyes. She was good at rooms like this, good at drawing their heat toward her. She thanked everyone for coming, said she was honored to stand beside me. Then her voice softened, and she tilted her head against the delicate noise of silverware and linen. I need to confess something, she said. It has been hard to watch Maeve rush into this. I was jealous. I was scared. I told Thomas things I shouldn't have. I wanted to protect her, but I made it worse. She laughed, the brittle kind that invites the room to forgive you. Families, right? The crowd leaned in. I felt Thomas stiffen beside me. He had told me there had been a strange conversation with Lena 2 months ago, some worry about my trust, a hint that I might still be seeing an old boyfriend. He had dismissed it, and we had worked through the flare. Now he squeezed my hand, eyes on the floor. Grace is a muscle, and he was using his. Lena continued, voice warm with practiced vulnerability. But I realized I was projecting my own mess onto her. So today, I want to say I'm sorry. I want to say I love you. She raised her glass. To Maeve and Thomas. May the truth keep you. The guests applauded. A few dabbed at their eyes. The band let the last note of a chord hang in the air. My mother took a photograph, catching the moment Lena's chin lifted with relief. If a confession doesn't cost you, it is a performance. I felt the old ache in my ribs, the one that arrived when we were girls, and she cried before I could explain. I had learned that Lena collected sympathy, the way I collected silence. My stomach tightened against the dress bones. I smiled and lifted my glass. People came to me after, one by one, to praise her courage. So brave, they said. So healing. They told me I was lucky. My lucky felt like a dress that pinched under the arms. Thomas traced a circle on my palm with his thumb. You okay? He asked. I'm fine, I said. The truth was less tidy. At our table, my mother arranged the cards from her friends. This is exactly what we needed, she said, eyes glistening. A fresh start. She meant Lena, not me. She always meant Lena. I watched my sister accept compliments that brushed against me like static, faint and irritating, not strong enough to hold. The rest of the toasts blurred, sweet and vaguely floral. Thomas's best man told a story about a road trip in Montana, snow and busted wipers, a motel with a broken heater, the way Thomas fixed things without fanfare. I listened, but my mind went to the story Lena hadn't told. She hadn't told them what she said in my kitchen, the day Thomas left for a conference, the day she arrived with takeout and a grin pitched toward mischief. Are you sure? She had murmured, eyes on my ring. You jumped so quickly. You're always so eager to be chosen. It had been a soft knife. I had washed dishes with my sleeves rolled to the elbow, hands in too hot water, while she threw her napkin away and told me about a man who adored her. The man did not exist, and she had kept the glow anyway. I moved through the reception, as if the floor had a hidden slope. People hugged me, and I gave them the right temperature of gratitude. Underneath, something steady began to form. Thin as wire, strong as wire. I thought of every apology that had shifted the weight onto me. I thought of every laugh that covered a cut. I watched Lena accept more praise, and I felt, for the first time in years, a small refusal rise in my throat. I excused myself near the sound booth, where Asha adjusted levels and checked a playlist. She glanced up, quick and kind. Need anything, Maeve? She asked. Maybe, I said. My voice surprised me. It sounded calm, like a lake you cannot see the depth of. Somewhere inside, a promise unfurled. I would not bleed for someone else's redemption again. The first time I heard the voicemail, it was by accident. 2 nights earlier, I had been finishing seating cards at our dining table, the lamp throwing warm light across our hands. Thomas placed his phone on the runner and went to fetch tea. It buzzed once, then again. I have never been the person who checks what does not belong to me, but the screen flashed a familiar name across the glass. It was Lena. I did not touch it. Thomas returned and saw the missed call. He said he would call her back later. We went to bed with our hands folded together, and the phone slept on the nightstand. In the morning, on his way to work, he listened to his messages. I heard the shape of silence that follows a recording, the way it changes the air. He handed me the phone. You should hear this, he said, voice careful. Lena had not hung up properly. Her voice filled the small speaker, clear and close. First she whispered to someone, a friend or a mirror. Then she spoke to the ether as if practicing a script. He'll thank me later, she said. She always wants the dream, even when it is not hers. If he thinks she cheated, he will slow down. I can help both of them. Then, after a pause, a different register. Thomas, I just want you to be certain. Maeve can be impulsive. She kisses ghosts. She is always leaving. I listened twice, then a third time, as if repetition could dilute it. The words sat in my chest like a stone. That was the shape of her concern, polished and pointed, sent into our home like a small, bright bullet. Thomas closed his eyes when I looked at him. I was going to show you, he said. I didn't want to ruin today. But you deserve to decide what to do. I put the phone on the table, placed my palms beside it, and stared at our reflection in black glass. Rage would have been easy. It would have poured through me, hot and loud. Instead, something slower moved, a heavy tide drawing back to reveal a field of small truths. I thought of the kitchen, the pears, the pearly lies. I thought of the rehearsal dinner, laughter arranged like cut flowers. I thought of all the apologies that changed nothing. I emailed the file to myself and saved a transcription. The proof object sat in my inbox like a quiet key. I forwarded a copy to a new folder with a neutral name. Then I texted Asha, asking if I could stop by the venue early to test the slideshow again. She said yes without question. Competence is another name for mercy. When I arrived, the hall felt like a stage before the curtain goes up, dusty light slanting across the floorboards. Asha met me with a clipboard. She wears authority like some women wear silk, effortless and smooth. Everything okay? She asked. Just a small technical thing, I said. Would it be possible to route a short audio file through the microphone during the toasts, if needed? Her eyes narrowed, not suspicious, only sharp. Yes, she said. We can cue anything you want. Do you want a mute switch after? I nodded. She did not ask what the file was. She did not require a story. I went home and sat with the knowledge. I made myself a sandwich. I watered the small fern near the sink. I folded the throw blanket over the arm of the couch. When Thomas came home, we set the table and ate, the way people do when they are trying not to break the ordinary. He reached for my hand. I hate that this is in our house, he said. I hate that she made you doubt yourself. I nodded and let the quiet hold us, heavy and necessary. Before bed, I listened again. The voice memo was the length of a breath held too long. I did not want revenge that scattered ash everywhere. I wanted a clean edge. I wanted to stand inside my life without adjusting for someone else's shadow. I sent Asha the file with a simple note, then placed my phone face down. I slept, not deeply, but without dreams. When morning arrived, I felt clear enough to mean the vows. I also felt clear enough not to hide. By the time Lena finished her confession at the reception, the room had settled into a soft admiration. She held the microphone like a lily, head bowed just enough to appear humbled. To Maeve and Thomas, she repeated. Her gaze slid to mine, bright and imploring. Tell me I am good again. I stood. My dress sighed against my legs. Thank you for your honesty, I said, voice steady. I appreciate it. I took the microphone and looked at our guests. There was no storm in me, only weather that had finally decided on a season. Families are complicated, I continued. Love grows crooked around what it can't reach. I would like to offer a different kind of confession, not from me, but for me. I turned toward the sound booth. Asha met my eyes and tapped the screen. The speakers breathed, then opened. Lena's voice filled the hall, the version of softness she used when no one was watching. He'll thank me later, Lena said. She always wants the dream, even when it is not hers. A chair scraped. Someone exhaled sharply. If he thinks she cheated, he will slow down. I can help both of them. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Thomas's jaw set, then unclenched. Maeve can be impulsive, the voice on the speakers finished. She kisses ghosts. She is always leaving. Silence followed, the kind that lists every sound you didn't know existed. The band stood very still. A fork chimed on a plate at a table near the door, then quieted. The recording ended. Asha lowered the level, then muted the channel entirely. I held the microphone like a lighthouse holds its small fire. This is also my family, I said. I don't say that to shame anyone. I say it to explain myself. Today, I am not leaving. I am not impulsive. I am not a ghost. I am a woman who listened, who saved a message, who believes that truth should be shared with the same volume as lies. Lena's face arranged itself, shock and hurt, and something like calculation. She reached for the mic with a trembling hand. "Maeve, that was taken out of context," she said. Her voice shook delicately, like crystal that expects to be caught. "I was worried. You know how I worry." "I know," I said. I looked at the guests who had told me I was lucky to have such a brave sister. We have all been worried in this family. Worry can be helpful. It can also be a disguise. Thomas stood, not to shield me, not to attack her, simply to stand where I was standing. He spoke softly. "Lena, I told you to stop. I asked you to trust us. You didn't." He took my free hand, unclasped it gently, and held it between both of his. "We are finished with that." My mother tried to rise, then sat again. Her eyes were wet, but focused. She looked at Lena and saw, maybe for the first time, the performance without the lighting. She looked at me and blinked long, a signal from childhood that meant she needed a minute. I granted it. "Please enjoy your meals," I said to the room. "Please dance. Please celebrate with us. We will be at the head table if you need us." I nodded to Asha, who lifted a finger in acknowledgement, then brought the music up a notch, something warm and forgiving. The hall exhaled and inhaled as one organism, shocked, then steady. Lena set the microphone down as if it might break. She turned to me, eyes glassy. "You're cruel," she whispered. "You wanted to humiliate me." I shook my head. No, my voice was almost kind. I wanted to stop being humiliated. She flinched, then looked around for a face that would catch her. Some did, out of habit. Some did not, out of fatigue. There was no screaming. There was no scene. There was a woman in a green dress finding out that winning sympathy is not the same as being forgiven. There was another woman in white deciding that dignity could be louder than silence when it needed to be. The justice, such as it was, arrived without thunder. It sat down beside me and stayed. The party did not fall apart. It changed shape. People approached us with careful steps, as if we were a painting that required distance. Some offered shy apologies for what they had thought, years before, in kitchens and driveways. Others said nothing and handed me a slice of cake. I was grateful for both. Eating is also a way of believing in the future. Lena left before the last dance, walking quickly toward the parking lot with her heels in her hand. Our mother followed her to the edge of the lights, then stopped as if a leash had finally snapped. She returned to our table and Saturday. "I don't know who started this," she said, voice thin. "I only know who ended it. I should have noticed sooner." I folded my napkin and did not say the thing that would wound her. There are many ways to be late. Some are kinder than others. Thomas's mother hugged me again, this time not careful at all. "I am proud of you," she said. "You didn't explode. You didn't retreat. You told the truth and let it rest." The band shifted into a bright, old song. We danced because the day still belonged to us. The sky darkened and kept clearing, like a heart calming down. When we got home, our apartment smelled familiar and unremarkable, which felt like a blessing. I took the pins from my hair and lined them on the bathroom counter. Thomas loosened his tie and leaned against the door frame. "I'm sorry you had to carry that," he said. "Not anymore," I answered. We put the gifts in a corner, stacked like small assurances that life carries on even after it narrows to a point. In the days that followed, I did not return the voicemail to its folder of proofs. I let it live in my mind as something that had already been spent. Lena sent a message that said she needed space. I told her I understood. I did not add that space has dimensions we each choose. She posted a photo later, sunlight and tea, the caption about healing. I did not read the comments. Asha emailed the final invoice and a note that said, simply, "Well handled." I wrote back to thank her for being ready. Readiness is its own love language. We sent the band a glowing review, and I printed one wedding photo, the one where Thomas and I are laughing at something no one else can see. The frame sits on our window ledge, square and honest. I called my mother on a Sunday. We talked about her garden, about the roses that never quite take, about the neighborhood cat that refuses to belong to anyone. Near the end, she cleared her throat. I am trying to adjust, she said, to letting you be the strong one, to letting Lena be less adored. I heard her house around her, the clock she had moved from room to room, the kettle that whistled for every mood. Thank you, I said. That is all I need from you right now. Some weeks later, in the quiet after dinner, Thomas asked if I wanted to keep the transcript. I thought about it. No, I said. I want to keep the lesson. He nodded and pressed his forehead to mine. We do not make shrines to harm. We make shelves for wisdom and leave room for flowers. On our balcony, the basil thickened and the mint went wild. I learned to pinch leaves without guilt, the way you encourage growth by choosing what must go. Mornings became slow and clean. I wrote thank you notes by hand. I ran near the river, letting the water teach me steadiness. Sometimes I remembered the reception, the sound of Lena's voice curling into the room and losing its power. I remembered the stillness afterward, the way quiet can announce a boundary. The story is not about punishment. It is about the moment you stop negotiating with someone else's hunger. It is about how a woman can hold her ground without raising her voice, and how a room can witness that and continue to dance. If there is redemption in it, it does not belong to me alone. It belongs to everyone who saw a new map that day, with roads that do not pass through apology. I hope Lena finds her own map, with a route that does not require detours through someone else's life. I hope my mother plants something that finally thrives. I hope Thomas and I keep choosing what is steady over what is dazzling, because we have learned that steady can shine. This morning, the light sits on our kitchen table like a quiet hand. I am washing 2 cups, and the water is warm. The basil waits to be clipped. Somewhere in the city, music starts, the kind you can hear only if you listen hard. My life is not louder now, but it is clearer. A kind of justice settled over it, gentle and exact, and I am trying to keep it clean. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories of quiet revenge.